Shalawam, this is Brother Rashawn, and today I wanted to talk about the Sabbath. For those in the Hebrew Israelite community, we know that we have to keep the Sabbath. But there was a question that came up on whether or not the Sabbath is for New Testament believers. Whether or not New Testament believers should keep the Sabbath according to the New Testament. Well, they say, well, yeah, we know that there's a commandment in the Old Testament that says we have to keep the Sabbath, but does that still remain according to the doctrine of the New Testament? So I wanted to answer this question very frankly by just reading scripture on it, and we're going to go to Hebrews chapter 4. Hebrews chapter 4. Alright, so let's begin. Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 1. Let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. So it says, let us fear lest the promise in which we were left, that we would enter into his rest, that any of us should fall short of it. Okay, we're going to continue to read because this really hasn't given us anything yet. Let's continue. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them, but the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. For we which have believed do enter into rest, as he saith, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. So what is he talking about according to this? We got to read the next verse, verse 4. For he spake in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise, and Elohim did rest the seventh day from all his work. So all that we just read before, it says, for he spake in a certain place of the seventh day, and Elohim did rest the seventh day from all his work. And verse 5, and in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest. Verse 6, seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached enter not in because of unbelief. It says because of unbelief, certain did not enter into that rest because of unbelief. What was that rest? In verse 4 tells us that rest he spake of was the seventh day. Let's continue. Verse 7, again, he limiteth a certain day, saying in David, today after so long a time, it is said, today if ye will hear my voice, harden not your heart. There it goes again. He says in verse 7, he limiteth a certain day, once again. And it says, for if Yeshua had given them rest, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day? It says, for if Yeshua had given them rest, then would he have spoken of another day? Why does he keep on speaking of this other day, this seventh day? Why does he keep on speaking of it? Why? Verse 9, there remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God, or Elohim. There remaineth a rest to the people of God. There you go. There remaineth a rest to the people of Elohim. What was the context of this chapter? For those that want to austere and try to say it's talking about something else. It was talking about, from verse 4, it said the seventh day. From verse 4, it said the seventh day. And from verse 5 to 6, it says those that don't believe did not enter into the rest because of unbelief. And it says again in verse 7, again he limiteth a certain day, saying in David, today after so long a time, as it is said, today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. So it says it's talking about a certain day. It's not talking about a rest according to a land or something like that. It's talking about a day according to the context. So let's read verse 9 one more time. There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of Elohim. What is that word rest? As we read through the whole chapter, the word rest was always this. Let me grab that word for rest. Throughout the whole chapter, the word rest was a certain word. Let me grab it for you real quick. The word came from G 2663. G 2663. One more time. G 2663. It is kata pauis, which means literally to rest. Kata pausis. Okay, so that's the word. Now that's been the word through the whole chapter. G 2663. But there's something different about verse 9. Verse 9, there is something different. Because it reads, there remaineth therefore a rest to the people of Elohim. The word rest in verse 9 of chapter 4 is different. Why? Because it comes from a different Greek word. Let's click that word. It is from G4520. So throughout the whole chapter, it's been from G2663, but now it's G4520, and the word is sabatismos. You can already hear it. Sabatismos. Sabatismos. Let's see the word sabatismos. Sabatismos. From the derivative of G4521. We're going to go to G4521 after we read this. G4521. It says from a derivative of G4521, a Sabbatism. And then they put etc. figuratively to repose of Christianity as a type of heaven. But as we read up in the chapter, it says it was talking about a certain day, the seventh day to be exact. It was talking about a certain day, so it was not talking about heaven. Let's continue. So let's get the word G4521, in which this word derives from. Let's see that word. G4521 reads Sabbatan. Sabbatan. The word Sabbatan is of Hebrew origin from H7676. This word is from Hebrew origin. So now you got a word that was from Hebrew origin that they also made another word that derived from it. So now let's read this word from H4521. It says, the Sabbath. Sabbaton of Hebrew origin, the Sabbath, or a day of the week, repose from secular activity, also the observance observance or institution itself. By extension, a Sinite, etc., the interval between two Sabbaths. Likewise, the plural is all above. It means Sabbath, day, or week. So the first thing you read is, it says the Sabbath. So if you read it according to the context of what it's saying, it says, there remaineth therefore a Sabbath to the people of Elohim. Through the whole chapter, it was G2663, but when it got to verse 9 where it says there remaineth a rest, it changed from that to G45. I believe G45 20. Let me get it real quick. G4520. And G4520 derived from G4521, which means Sabbath. And G45:21 comes from a Hebrew word. So let's see what that Hebrew word was. It's H7676. Let's see that Hebrew word it derives from. And the word is Sabbath. Sabbath. Sabbath meaning intensive, from H7673, intermission, the Sabbath. Every Sabbath. Specifically, the Sabbath plus every Sabbath. There we go. The word is Sabbath. No matter what way you look at this word. So let's read it again. It says, there remaineth therefore a Sabbath to the people of Elohim. One more time. There remain therefore a Sabbath to the people of Elohim. Sabbatimos derives from Sabbatan, which derives from the Hebrew word Shabbath. So it's saying there remaineth the Sabbath. And if you read the context of 4, reading down, it continually talks about a day, not a land or a place, but a day. So I'm going to try to wrap this up. Let's read from verse 9 to 10. It says, for he that entered into his rest, he also hath ceased from his own work, as Elohim did of his. Let us labor therefore to enter into that rest, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief. One more time. Lest any man fall after the example of unbelief. If you're not following this day, and if you want to say that this day is no longer important, and you can follow any pagan day you want, no matter how much evidence is piled up against the Sunday worshipers, no matter how much evidence is put against Sunday, you're going to follow Sunday because you can worship on any day. The day was not a day of, the day was, you worship the Most High every day, but the day was not meant for worship. The day was meant to show the example of what the Most High did in the beginning, according to the context of this chapter. We are resting on that day. Why? To show our belief that the Most High rested on that day. Because if we believe that the Most High rested on that day and we keep that example, then we believe He did the work before that day. So if someone asks, why do you keep the Sabbath? What's the immediate answer? I always answer, hey, why do you keep the Sabbath? Because after the Most High finished His creation, He rested. The Sabbath is a keeping of faith. It's a show of your faith, what you believe in. So when you keep the seventh day, what does that mean? It's an example of your faith. That means you have faith in the sun god. So that's all I have to say on that. I just thought that was a beautiful passage. Brother Udo, I thank you for helping me find this chapter. And I'm going to close the book. And thank you and Shalawam.